Are you someone who has high pH in your aquaponics system and you're going, oh my God, what do I do? I know high pH is bad, it's going to affect the health of my fish, my plants. What do I do? How do I lower my pH? You can't just lower your pH symptoms. You need to understand what's actually causing the pH. So let's have a real quick look. Oh, not quick. Let's have an actual good look at what the possible causes are and how you can problem solve to find out what the cause of your high pH is and then how to fix it. High pH, what's causing it so you can fix it. It's like going to a doctor and going, I feel sick. You don't want them just prescribing antibiotics because it might be something that has nothing to do with antibiotics. They need to understand what the cause or what's causing this problem. They need to understand. So often blood tests and yada yada yada. They can't just overall treat. Okay? Very much the same when it comes to your pH. You have to know what the problem is to fix the problem. So hopefully you have your freshwater master test kit and it's come back, a little chart here comes back and it says high pH. You know, on the left hand side when you're looking at it, so down here, it shows you down to 7.6 and the high pH range is 7.4 to 8.8. Before we go any further, I just want to point out, remember that your pH might be lower than what this chart tells you. So I want you to check out the video about low pH because it can get really low, but your chart here won't tell you. This is why a pH pen can actually be a better option. But that was just a side note. High pH, what do you do? The first thing you need to do is you need to work out what is causing the high pH. So the easiest step is to test your source water. What's the pH of your source water? What do I mean by source water? Is that town water, so tap water? Is that bore water? Is it tank water, so rainwater tank? Test what the pH there is. Because if it's pH related to that, there are things you can do about that still, but it's important to know if that's the case. It's generally one of two things. So your source water, and I'm pointing over there because I've got bubbling water over there because I am dechlorinating tap water. The second thing that it could be, if it's not your water source, it could be your media, your gravel. Now this is expanded clay, so it's pH neutral, but it could be the gravel that you're using for your grow bed media. So check out this little snippet to understand how to do a vinegar test to see if it's actually your gravel. Vinegar in here, there should be no bubbles. It should just be like it's water. See how they all... That's the expanded clay and it floats until it starts to fill up with water. That's the that's the scoria rock or volcanic rock, and this is the activated charcoal. Now there are no bubbles, so I'm just going to go through and show you. There are no bubbles rising out of that, so that's not going to affect your pH. So that's the expanded clay. This is the scoria rock, or the volcanic rock. Again, no bubbles. Good, not going to affect the pH. This is the activated charcoal. Not going to affect the pH, but it hasn't been cleaned, so it's a bit mucky in there. The other two, what I'm wanting to show you, they look very similar, but they're actually very, very different. This jar contains river rock. Please do not go and collect river rock yourself. You're going to affect the environment and the ecosystem of that river system or creek system. You go, yeah, but I'm only going to get a little bit. If everybody just goes and gets a little bit, then it's going to really impact the ecosystem and cause massive problems. So yes, you can get this at a landscaper, but this is river rock. As I said in the other video, it does not have as high a surface area as the expanded clay or the scoria rock or volcanic rock, but it is quite heavy and it does help with the root stability. So my systems actually all have a combination of this river rock and the expanded clay. So river rock is in this jar, and this other jar is gravel from the landscape yard. Okay, pretty much looks like river rock, but it has a type of carbonate on it that's going to cause bubbles. Bubbles, bubbles everywhere, bubbles, bubbles happening. We want to check to make sure that we're not getting bubbles with whatever we use. So, let's have a look at the vinegar on these ones. My river rock. No bubbles. No bubbles. Looks like nice clean drinking water, but oh, strong vinegar smell. This is a type of gravel from the landscaper. Let's do it in a way that you can see. It's going to be cloudy to start off with, but it's also frizzing. And I'm hoping you can see there's bubbles, lots and lots of little, tiny little bubbles in there. And that means, and I know from a lot of experience, this one is going to affect the pH. Okay? Check out the description to find some more information about aquaponics and how you can move forward and get this happening. So, now you've identified either or, so, master test kit, and we have tested our source water, or we have done the vinegar test to see if it is our gravel. Which one is it? And point of note, it can be a combination of both. The thing is, if it's your expanded clay, if it's your gravel, and I'm pointing over here because this is one of my systems, if it's the gravel, it's going to keep raising the pH because it has a lot of carbonates in the gravel. Okay, so until that settles down, it's going to keep raising the pH. So you can keep adding some type of pH down, even some vinegar, but it's going to raise it straight back up again. Nature's going to have to do its thing on that one. Unfortunately, there's not a whole, unless you wanted to remove all of that expanded clay, all of that gravel and put in expanded clay, and there's a reason you've probably gone for gravel, probably because it's cheaper than expanded clay. So there's not a whole lot you can actually do about that, but understanding that that's the problem makes it a lot easier. So yes, you can replace it. You can add things like pH down. Vinegar will do the exact same thing, just saying. But what's causing it is because the gravel has a whole heap of carbonates in it. And if you know about carbonate hardness, if you've got a high reading of carbonate hardness, it's going to buffer your pH. So basically it's going to keep your pH at that level until the nitrifying bacteria, because when the nitrification process happens, the ammonia into nitrite, then into nitrate, that nitrification cycle, when that happens, it actually naturally lowers your pH. But if you've got high carbonate hardness, so high carbonates in your gravel, for instance, what's going to happen is that it's going to stay up there until that natural cycle has consumed enough of those carbonates to then lower the pH. So you can continue to add stuff, it will eventually work, but here's the thing, once you get it lowering, you don't want to go too low. Sometimes it's actually better to work with what you've got. Just saying. pH is around 8, it's not ideal for your veggies, but some veggies will definitely grow, and it's certainly not going to kill your fish either. Well, depending on the type of fish, I should clarify that. You will have what's called nutrient lockout though, especially for your iron supplement. So you need to make sure that if you've got high pH, pH above 7.6, you're using a special type of iron. Check out the video links below to understand what I mean by that. And while you're checking that out, I've got more information, free information, on more aquaponics information stuff. More information about more information. Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? If you want to learn more about aquaponics in a more structured way, where you're not having to try and find everything, jump into the description. I've got links in there, as well as some courses that might be suitable. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I'm putting videos up every couple of days, so make sure that you hit subscribe so you can get all of them. So if it is your source water, again, there's actually not a whole lot you can do about that. But keep in mind, your source water will fluctuate with its pH. So my pH around here at the moment is currently 8. That's pretty high, not great. 2 months ago, it was 7.2. Earlier on, it was 6.8. It's important to keep testing to understand what's happening with the source water pH. It will fluctuate. So don't just assume that it's 8, it's always going to stay at 8, right? It will actually change. Again, you can be trying things like your pH down. I'm not a huge fan of that, just going to say, but a lot of people do use it. And what you can do is wait it out. Make sure that you're keeping an eye on your pH for start. It will naturally lower, especially when it's in a cycled system. That nitrification cycle happening, once it's in your system, it will start to lower. But it's that initial, the whole system is at 8, or it's whatever the whole system is when you're just starting off. It's totally freaks you out, it's totally understand. Understand what the cause is. If, when you're cycling your system, if your pH is super high, is it the source water or is it your gravel? If it's the source water, at that point you'll be able to lower it a lot easier than, later. Because, you don't have any fish in there, so you can adjust the pH really easily. If it's your gravel, well, you've got the choices of waiting it out or trying to get rid of all of that carbonate hardness, which you kind of do actually want carbonate hardness in there, but there's usually a fair bit in there with an aquaponics system. So they're your main options though, but that's, if you don't understand the cause, you can't fix it. So the source water will fluctuate, no matter what's happening, it will vary. Once you fill up your system and it's really high, if your gravel is not causing the pH to go up, so your vinegar test was 0, or was not bubbling, then it will naturally lower itself really easily. Just give it a little bit of time. If it is your gravel, then you need to identify, well, that's probably going to take 6 months at least before it starts lowering its pH. So what are you going to do at that point? You're going to add some pH down, add some vinegar, and keep doing it until it starts to wear off. You're going to empty it all out and give it a really good wash. Well, that's an awful lot of work, especially if it's a big batch of something. Or as I said, the pH down and the vinegar are 2 options of lowering it. But if it's your gravel, it's going to keep raising up and raising up until the carbonates have been used.